The sun had barely risen above the cracked rooftops of Brookdale when Emily Carter pushed her rusted cart down the narrow sidewalk. The wheels squeaked with each turn, carrying a basket of apples she had gathered from the nearby orchard, some bruised, some bright red and shining under the weak morning light. The city was slowly waking up, car horns, distant construction noise, the smell of exhaust mixing with the faint scent of her fruit. Emily wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this part of town, not at this hour. She'd promised herself she'd never come this far into the industrial district again. Not after what happened 2 winters ago. But rent was due, her son Noah needed new shoes for school, and the grocery store job she'd applied for hadn't called her back. So here she was, a single mother in a worn-out denim jacket, selling apples one by one to passing strangers who rarely looked her in the eye. 2 for $1, she called out softly, her voice swallowed by the hum of the city. A few people passed, pretending not to hear her. Others smiled awkwardly, dropping a few coins into her jar before hurrying away. She didn't blame them. The world moved too fast for people like her. No one had time for a woman selling fruit from a cart. By mid-morning, she had sold only 6 apples. Noah would be getting out of school in a few hours, and she still needed to buy bread and milk. Her hands ached from pushing the cart, her back from standing. She was about to call it a day when the sound of an engine, a deep, growling engine, echoed from down the street. Emily looked up. A black SUV, tinted windows and chrome wheels, pulled up beside her cart. The passenger window rolled down, and a young man leaned out. He couldn't have been more than 25, but everything about him screamed money: leather jacket, gold chain, expensive watch. His smirk was the kind that made her stomach tighten. She'd seen men like him before, the kind who thought the world belonged to them. "Hey," he said, his tone casual but cold. "How much for the whole basket?" Emily blinked. "The whole basket? It's 40 apples, sir. That'd be $20, he chuckled. $20? He looked back at the driver and laughed. "You hear that, Tony? $20 for some apples." The driver, a stocky man with tattoos crawling up his neck, snorted. "Guess hard times make people greedy." The young man turned back to Emily, his grin widening. "You know who I am?" Emily shook her head. "I'm Vincent DeLuca," he said, leaning farther out the window. "My father runs this city. You're standing on DeLuca territory, which means if you're making money here, you pay a cut. That's how it works." Emily froze. The name sent a chill down her spine. Everyone in Brookdale knew the DeLucas. They owned half the downtown businesses, and the other half paid them to stay open. Don Salvatore DeLuca, the Don, people whispered, wasn't just a businessman. He was a man who made people disappear. I didn't know," she stammered. "I'm just trying to sell apples." "I don't have much," Vincent smirked. "Everyone says that. But if you're selling on my father's turf, you owe us $10. "I don't even have $10 yet," she whispered. He reached out, grabbed an apple from the basket, and took a bite. Juice ran down his chin. "Then I guess you shouldn't be here." Emily's eyes filled with tears as she tried to hold her ground. "Please, sir. I'm just trying to feed my son." Vincent's face hardened. "Your son?" He stepped out of the SUV, slamming the door shut. His boots crunched against the pavement as he approached her. "Listen, lady, I don't care about your sob story. You want to sell apples here, you pay. You don't pay." He reached forward suddenly, flipping the cart over with one shove. Apples rolled into the street, scattering under the tires of passing cars. "Then you don't sell anything," Emily gasped. "Stop, please." But he only laughed, brushing invisible dust from his jacket. "Next time, find another corner. Or maybe I'll find your cart before you do." He started to turn away when a sound, deep, distant, and unmistakable, cut through the street. Engines, dozens of them. Everyone looked up as a thunderous roar grew louder, echoing off the walls. From the end of the block, a line of motorcycles appeared, chrome flashing under the sunlight. Men in leather jackets, patches on their backs reading Hell's Angels. Brookdale chapter rode in formation. They weren't speeding, just cruising, slow, deliberate, commanding. Vincent froze. His driver tensed. Emily stared in disbelief as the pack approached, engines rumbling like thunderclouds rolling across asphalt. The leader, a tall man with a beard streaked with gray, pulled his bike to a stop near Emily's overturned cart. His jacket bore a large red patch that said President. His cold blue eyes scanned the scene. The apples scattered, the SUV, the woman trembling. He killed the engine. The street went silent. "Everything okay here, ma'am?" he asked, his voice low and calm but carrying authority. Emily swallowed hard. I was just selling apples. He knocked over my cart." The biker turned his gaze to Vincent. The young man tried to look unfazed, but a flicker of fear passed through his eyes. Everyone knew who the Hells Angels were, especially the DeLucas. There was an unspoken truce between the two groups. The bikers didn't mess with mob business, and the mob stayed out of biker territory. "But this street, this was gray ground, is that true?" the biker asked, taking a step closer. "You knock over her cart." Vincent straightened. "She was selling here without permission. This is DeLuca property," the biker smirked. "You're Sal's kid, huh?" "Vincent?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "Yeah, so what?" "So," the biker said, his voice dropping lower, "maybe you should tell your old man his boy's been bullying single moms instead of earning his own respect." A few of the other bikers laughed darkly. Vincent's face reddened. "Watch your mouth," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You don't talk to me like that." The biker's eyes glinted. "You just threatened me?" "No," Vincent said quickly, glancing at his driver. "We're leaving." But before he could take a step, one of the bikers, a massive man with tattoos covering both arms, blocked his path. "You forgot something," he said, nodding toward the apples crushed under the SUV tire. "You made a mess." "Clean it up." Vincent blinked. "What?" "You heard him," the leader said, crossing his arms. "You made a mess of this lady's cart." "You're gonna fix it." Vincent laughed nervously. "You can't be serious." The biker leaned in, close enough for Vincent to smell the smoke on his breath. "Does it look like I'm joking?" For a long moment, no one moved. Then Vincent muttered a curse under his breath and knelt down, picking up an apple. His driver followed, collecting the fruit quietly while the bikers watched. A few pedestrians had gathered at a distance, whispering, filming with their phones. Emily stood frozen, disbelief flooding through her. When the cart was mostly refilled, the biker leader turned back to her. "You okay now?" She nodded shakily. "Yes, thank you." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded $100 bill, and placed it gently on the cart. "For the trouble." "I can't take—" she began. "You can?" he interrupted. "And you will. Consider it community service." Emily hesitated, then whispered, "Thank you, sir." He nodded once, then looked back at Vincent. "Tell your old man the angels don't like bullies. And next time you try to throw your weight around, make sure it's not in front of a lady like her." With that, he turned, started his bike, and revved the engine. The rest followed, a symphony of roaring engines filling the air. As they rode off, the street seemed to come back to life, though nothing about it felt the same. Vincent stood there, humiliated, breathing hard. He turned to Emily, his face twisted in anger. "You think this is over?" he hissed. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." But before Emily could respond, he jumped back into the SUV, slamming the door. The tires screeched as the vehicle sped away, leaving only the faint smell of burnt rubber and crushed apples. Emily stood in silence, staring at the crumpled dollar bill in her hand, the gleaming motorcycles vanishing down the road like guardian spirits from another world. For the first time in years, she felt something. She'd almost forgotten how to feel. Safety. She didn't know that what had just happened would ripple far, beyond this broken street, because the moment Vincent DeLuca walked into his father's mansion. Later that evening, blood still boiling, ego still bruised, he would set in motion a chain of events that would drag Emily Carter and the Hells Angels into a storm that would shake Brookdale to its core. And this time, no one would walk away untouched. The DeLuca mansion sat on the edge of Brookdale's northern hills, a fortress of marble, glass, and silent fear. The house wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Power didn't shout here. It whispered. It moved. It watched. That night, the air inside the mansion was thick with the smell of cigars and whiskey. The long dining table was empty except for one man seated at the head, Don Salvatore De Luca, a name that made even police captains lower their eyes. His suit was dark as ash, his silver hair slicked back, his eyes calm and calculating. Vincent stood across from him, still nursing the bruise on his pride more than anything else. He'd told the story 3 times already, each version angrier, each one making the Hells Angels look more like aggressors than defenders. They disrespected me. "Dad," he said, slamming his hand against the table, in front of everyone. "They made me pick up apples off the damn street like some beggar." Salvatore took a slow drag from his cigar, exhaled, and said nothing. "They laughed at me," Vincent went on. "Those biker trash humiliated your son. Are we just going to let that slide?" Salvatore finally looked up. "You knocked over a woman's cart?" Vincent hesitated. "She was selling on our turf. That's the rule." "The rule," the Don repeated quietly, "is for men who collect protection money from bars, clubs, and businesses that make profit, not from women selling fruit to feed their children." Vincent opened his mouth to argue, but his father raised a hand. The room fell silent. "I built this empire on respect," Salvatore said, his voice low but sharp. "You think fear keeps people loyal? No, fear breaks. Respect holds, but nothing," the Don snapped. "You embarrassed this family. You acted like a street thug instead of my son." The words hit Vincent harder than any slap. He clenched his jaw, shame and rage burning under his skin. "I'll make it right," he muttered. Salvatore leaned back. "How?" "I'll teach those bikers what happens when they cross us." For a moment, silence. Then the Don gave a small, almost pitying smile. "You don't pick fights with wolves, Vincent, especially not when you've still got milk on your breath." Vincent's fists tightened. "They made a fool of me. You think I can just forget that?" "No," Salvatore said, standing. "You'll remember it. You'll learn from it. That's what you'll do." Vincent stared at him, face red, but the conversation was over. The Don turned and walked toward his office, the door closing softly behind him. Vincent stood there for a long time, teeth grinding, before finally whispering under his breath, "You'll see who's got milk on his breath." Later that night, the city slept under a blanket of fog. Emily lay awake in her small apartment above a laundromat, listening to the distant hum of motorcycles. Noah was asleep beside her, curled under a blanket patched too many times to count. She couldn't stop thinking about the man who'd helped her, the Hell's Angel leader with the calm eyes and quiet authority. He hadn't given his name, but his voice lingered in her mind. It wasn't the voice of a criminal. It was something steadier, older, almost kind. She rose quietly, poured herself a glass of water, and stared out the window. Down below, the streets looked peaceful. But somewhere deep inside, a flicker of unease twisted in her gut. People like Vincent didn't forget humiliation. Across town, in a dimly lit bar on 5th Street, the Hells Angels had gathered for their weekly meet. The room smelled of beer, leather, and engine oil. At the head of the table sat Marcus Bear Dalton, the chapter president, the same man who'd stood up to Vincent earlier that day. He wasn't smiling now. "They'll come for us," said one of the bikers, a scarred man named Lenny. "The De Lucas don't take embarrassment lightly." Bear nodded slowly. "I know, but we didn't start this. The kid crossed the line and we stepped in." "That's all? Maybe," said another biker, "but his old man won't see it that way." Bear exhaled. "Let him come talk to me then. We've had an understanding for years. I don't break peace unless someone else does." Lenny leaned forward. "And if Vincent breaks it?" Bear looked down at his glass. "Then we finish it." The room went silent. Everyone knew what that meant. By the next afternoon, the peace was already cracking. Vincent had gathered a few of his father's younger enforcers, men who owed him favors, men stupid or loyal enough to do what he asked without permission. They met in a warehouse near the docks. "I'm not going to let my old man run my life forever," Vincent said, pacing. "Those bikers think they can humiliate me in my own city." "We'll send a message." "What kind of message?" one of them asked. Vincent smirked. "A loud one." He handed out photos. The biker hangout on 5th, the alley behind it, the route they rode. And one more. Emily Carter's apple cart, parked near the school. The men glanced at each other uneasily. You want us to hit a woman? No, Vincent said with a cold grin. Just scare her. She's the reason this started. You make her disappear for a while. They'll come looking. We'll be waiting. The next day was cloudy and heavy with the smell of rain. Emily set up her cart again, trying to smile through the fatigue. A few regulars stopped by, chatting kindly. Life for a moment felt almost normal, but then she saw the black car. It was parked across the street, windows tinted. It hadn't been there yesterday, and it didn't move. Her stomach twisted. She told herself it was nothing, just paranoia, until she noticed the man standing near the lamppost. Same face she'd seen yesterday in the SUV's passenger seat. Tony, Vincent's driver. He wasn't looking at her directly, but his presence was enough. Emily's heart pounded. She grabbed her phone, but it was dead. She'd forgotten to charge it last night. The man leaned against the pole, lighting a cigarette. She started packing up her cart. Hands trembling when a motorcycle engine echoed from down the street. For a moment she froze, not in fear this time, but in hope. The sound grew louder. Then she saw him. Bear, the Hell's Angel leader, pulling up beside her. You okay? He asked. Emily shook her head. That man over there? He's been watching me. Bear turned slightly, scanning the area. His jaw clenched. Stay behind me. He revved his engine once, loud and sharp, the kind of sound that cuts through air and draws attention. Tony looked up, startled, then started walking away fast. Get on, Bear said. What? Your cart'll be fine. Get on. Emily hesitated, then climbed onto the back of his bike, clutching his jacket as the engine roared. They sped off through the streets, wind whipping her hair, the city blurring past. He didn't stop until they reached the edge of the industrial zone, where the Angels' clubhouse stood, a converted auto garage surrounded by steel fences. Bear parked and helped her off. You're safe here, he said. Emily looked around, nervous. The bikers were intimidating, but none of them looked cruel. They nodded respectfully as she passed. Why are they following me? She asked. Bear sighed. Because of that kid you stood up to. He's trying to prove he's a man. Problem is, he's doing it in the dumbest way possible. What am I supposed to do? Stay here tonight, Bear said. We'll keep an eye on you. I'll make a few calls, see if we can calm things down before they get out of hand. She wanted to refuse, to say she didn't belong here, but the fear in her gut said otherwise. So she nodded. Bear handed her a cup of coffee and a blanket. You got family? Just my son, Noah. He's at school. We'll get him, Bear said. Don't worry. That evening, Noah sat waiting outside his school, backpack at his feet. The rain had started, thin and cold. He watched the cars go by, expecting to see his mom's cart come around the corner. It never did. Then a black sedan pulled up. A man stepped out. Tony again. He smiled too easily. Hey, kid. Your mom sent me. Said to give you a ride home. Noah hesitated. I don't know you. She's waiting for you, kid. Come on, you'll catch a cold. Noah backed away. His instincts screamed. Then another sound, low and powerful, cut through the rain. A motorcycle. Bear. He pulled up beside the curb, eyes burning with fury. The hell you doing, Tony? Tony froze. Just giving the kid a ride, yeah? Bear said, dismounting. Funny, 'cause his mom's at my clubhouse right now. Tony's hand twitched toward his jacket. But before he could reach whatever was inside, Bear had him by the collar, slamming him against the car. Tell your boss, Bear growled, that if he so much as looks at that woman or her boy again, I'll bury every car he owns in the bay. Tony coughed, nodding fast. Bear let him go, and the man stumbled into the driver's seat, speeding off into the rain. Noah stared, wide-eyed. Bear crouched to his level. You're Noah, right? The boy nodded. I'm a friend of your mom's. She's safe. Come on, I'll take you to her. Back at the clubhouse, Emily ran out as soon as she heard the engines. When she saw Noah, tears of relief spilled down her cheeks. She hugged him tight, whispering his name over and over. Bear watched quietly, then turned away to make a call. Yeah, he said into the phone. We got the kid. But DeLuca's goons are getting bolder. If Sal doesn't rein his boy in, this is gonna get ugly fast. A pause. Then a gruff voice on the other end. You sure you want to get in the middle of this, Bear? The DeLucas play dirty. Bear's eyes hardened. So do we. He hung up. At the DeLuca mansion, Vincent was furious when he heard Tony's version of the story. She's hiding with them? He shouted. That's perfect. We'll smoke them out together. Tony shook his head. Boss, that Bear guy, he's not someone to mess with. The whole chapter's behind him, Vincent grinned darkly. Good. I want them all in one place. He looked out the window toward the city lights. They want to humiliate me? Fine. I'll show them what humiliation feels like when their clubhouse burns to the ground. Tony hesitated. Your father... My father's not here. Vincent cut him off. And when he finds out what I did, he'll see I'm not just some spoiled kid. Outside, thunder rolled across the hills as rain poured harder. Somewhere in the city, Bear loaded his shotgun, and Emily held her son close, whispering that everything would be all right. But deep down, she knew the storm wasn't just in the sky. It was coming for all of them. Rain poured over Brookdale like the heavens themselves were washing away the filth that had built up in its veins. The streets glistened with reflections of neon lights and passing cars, puddles rippling under every drop. Inside the Hells Angels clubhouse, the air buzzed with tension. Boots thudded on concrete floors. Engines were being checked, guns cleaned, blades sharpened. Bear stood by the window, staring out at the storm. He wasn't a man who liked